Today, we're diving into a case that began like any other quiet morning in the small desert town of Silver Ridge, New Mexico, until a devoted mother vanished without a trace just hours before her daughter's high school graduation. What started as a simple family celebration quickly spiraled into a nightmare filled with secrets, silence, and a chilling revelation that would shake a community to its core. This is the story of Lauren Mitchell. Silver Ridge is the kind of place where everyone knows your name, a sleepy desert suburb just outside Albuquerque, New Mexico. On October 28, 2022, the town was preparing to celebrate a milestone, 17-year-old Ava Mitchell's high school graduation, the first in her family. Her mother, Lauren Mitchell, was the heart of their small family, a nurse, a single mother, and a woman quietly rebuilding her life after a difficult marriage. Lauren's younger sister, Sandra, was flying in from Texas to join the celebration. But beneath the surface of hope and joy, dark tensions simmered. Lauren's estranged husband, Derek Mitchell, was a shadow looming over their lives, a man with a controlling streak and a history that raised more questions than answers. This was meant to be a weekend of triumph. Instead, it would become a story of disappearance, suspicion, and heartbreak. October 28, 2022, dawned crisp and clear over Silver Ridge, New Mexico. The desert sun cast long shadows across the quiet streets as Lauren Mitchell moved through her modest home with a practiced calm. Today was her daughter Ava's graduation, a day she had dreamed of for years. But beneath Lauren's steady exterior, a storm was quietly brewing. In the kitchen, the smell of freshly brewed coffee mingled with the soft hum of a morning news broadcast. Lauren's fingers trembled slightly as she prepared breakfast for Maya, her youngest. Across town, Ava rehearsed her graduation speech, her voice barely above a whisper. Lauren's sister Sandra was due to arrive any minute at the Albuquerque airport. They had plans to celebrate, to move forward. But by noon, the first cracks began to show. Sandra's flight touched down on schedule, but Lauren was nowhere to be found. Calls went unanswered. Text messages left unread. Minutes stretched into hours. The balloons meant to decorate the living room fluttered listlessly, a stark contrast to the growing sense of dread. When Sandra arrived at the Mitchell home, the front door stood ajar. Inside, silence. Too much silence. The living room was immaculate, but a shattered picture frame lay discarded near the hallway, the glass cracked and stained faintly with something dark. A trail of blood smeared along the carpet led toward the bedroom. Lauren's phone, powered off, was tucked beneath the dresser. Her car keys were missing. The overnight bag she always carried was untouched in the corner. No forced entry. No sign of struggle. At least, none visible to the untrained eye. Ava sat on the couch, clutching her phone, eyes red from crying. She just disappeared, she whispered. By late afternoon, the Silver Ridge Police Department had arrived. Yellow tape cordoned off the house, and officers moved with quiet urgency, piecing together the first fragments of a nightmare that no one in this town was prepared for. Lauren Mitchell, nurse, mother, sister, was gone. And no one knew why. As the sun dipped lower, shadows lengthened across the quiet streets of Silver Ridge. Inside the Mitchell home, a team of officers combed through the rooms, their flashlights casting eerie glows on walls that had seen nothing but ordinary life until hours before. Every detail was examined, every surface scrutinized. Detective Maria Lopez, a seasoned investigator with 2 decades on the force, took the lead. She crouched near the shattered photo frame in the hallway, careful not to disturb the faint bloodstain smeared along the carpet's edge. "Looks like she was hurt here," Lopez murmured, more to herself than anyone else. Ava hovered nearby, clutching her phone like a lifeline. Her hands shook, and her voice was barely audible when she spoke. "I talked to Mom around 9 a.m. She said she was going to pick up Aunt Sandra, that she'd be back soon." Sandra paced the living room, phone pressed to her ear as she reported the timeline to the dispatcher. "She never showed up at the airport," Sandra said, frustration and fear weaving through her voice. Her phone goes straight to voicemail. It's like she disappeared into thin air. Detective Lopez nodded, already piecing together the initial sketch of the day's mystery. Inside Lauren's bedroom, the scene was deceptively calm. Her phone lay beneath the dresser, powered off, as if deliberately hidden. On the bed, a carefully folded note rested atop a pillow, but its contents were smeared, perhaps by a stray tear or an accidental spill. "Did anyone see anything unusual today?" Lopez asked Ava gently. Ava shook her head, eyes brimming with tears. "No. Mom seemed tired but, okay. Maybe distracted." Sandra pulled Ava into a hug, shielding her from the cold, hard glare of the investigation unfolding around them. Hours ticked by. Officers canvassed neighbors, their questions met with shaking heads or tentative glances. No one had seen Lauren leave, no suspicious cars or strangers noticed in the quiet cul-de-sac. Outside, word spread like wildfire. By nightfall, neighbors gathered in clusters, their whispered conversations weaving a tapestry of fear and disbelief. Lauren Mitchell, the steadfast nurse who cared for so many, had vanished without a trace. At the police station, a forensic team began analyzing the blood sample from the photo frame. Preliminary results would take hours, but the hint of violence was undeniable. Meanwhile, Detective Lopez pulled up Lauren's recent phone records and social media activity. No calls or texts after 9 a.m. Nothing unusual, except for one cryptic message Lauren had sent to a friend days earlier. "Sometimes, running away is the only way to survive." What did it mean? Was it a warning? A plea? Back at the Mitchell home, Ava clung to her phone, replaying the last conversation she had with her mother. The unease that had crept into Lauren's voice now made sense, a sense of dread, of something lurking beneath the surface. As midnight approached, the house felt colder, not from the desert chill outside, but from the void left by Lauren's disappearance. The once lively home was now a silent testament to fear and unanswered questions. And somewhere in the shadows, secrets waited to be uncovered. The morning after Lauren Mitchell's disappearance, Silver Ridge awoke to a heavy silence that seemed to press down on every street and home. The town that once buzzed with small-town chatter was now gripped by a chilling uncertainty. Inside the Mitchell house, the atmosphere was thick with grief and suspicion. Detective Maria Lopez returned with a forensic team to conduct a thorough search. The house, once a place of laughter and hope, now felt like a cage holding whispered secrets. Every corner, every drawer was opened with care, looking for clues, for anything Lauren might have left behind. In the living room, Ava sat wrapped in a blanket, eyes hollow but alert. Beside her, her Aunt Sandra tried to comfort her, but her own hands trembled with helplessness. "Tell me about your parents," Lopez said gently, hoping to find a crack in the silence. Ava's voice was barely audible. "Mom was tired. Dad. Derek wasn't around much. He's been gone for months. Things weren't good." Sandra nodded grimly. Lauren tried to keep the peace, but Derek's anger was like a storm, always threatening to break. The detectives listened carefully. In the days before the disappearance, neighbors recalled heated arguments muffled behind closed doors. Derek Mitchell, once a charming man, had become increasingly volatile, a shadow of the husband and father he used to be. But Derek had disappeared too, leaving only a voicemail that chilled Sandra to the bone. "I'm sorry. I can't do this anymore." Police found his truck abandoned at a rest stop miles from Silver Ridge. Meanwhile, inside the house, something else was amiss. Detectives discovered Lauren's personal journal hidden beneath a loose floorboard in her bedroom closet. The pages were filled with scribbled notes, fears, and desperate hopes. One entry stood out. "I don't know how much longer I can keep pretending. If something happens to me, please find the truth." The word sent a ripple of dread through the investigators. Outside, the community was restless. Flyers with Lauren's photo appeared on every lamppost. Candlelight vigils were planned. But beneath the show of solidarity, whispers of suspicion and fear grew louder. Had Lauren run away? Or had something far darker occurred behind the closed doors of the Mitchell home? Detective Lopez knew one thing: every family has secrets. And sometimes, the most dangerous ones hide in plain sight. As the sun set over Silver Ridge, the search for Lauren Mitchell took on a desperate urgency, a race against time to uncover a truth that someone wanted buried forever. The days following Lauren Mitchell's disappearance were a blur of search parties, media attention, and mounting despair. But it was a single, unexpected lead that jolted the investigation into a new and darker direction. Detective Lopez sat at her desk, eyes fixed on a grainy surveillance video pulled from a gas station nearly 90 miles east of Silver Ridge, on the outskirts of the Mojave Desert. The footage showed a familiar black SUV pulling up late in the afternoon, Derek Mitchell's truck. His face was tense, eyes darting nervously as he made a quick purchase: duct tape, a large bottle of energy drinks, and an unmarked prepaid phone. To the casual observer, it was just another man buying supplies. But to Lopez, it was a chilling breadcrumb. Why would Derek be so far from home, and why these particular items? Meanwhile, Lauren's car, a sleek, black sedan, was found abandoned days later on a desolate stretch of desert highway, dust-coated and eerily still. Inside, the discovery shocked the small town to its core: Lauren's lifeless body, concealed beneath a tarp in the back seat. The investigation took a grim turn. Derek Mitchell was nowhere to be found, his trail growing colder by the hour. The man who had once been a husband and father was now the prime suspect in a case that had spiraled into tragedy. Back in Silver Ridge, the community was stunned. How could a family known for quiet resilience hide such darkness? Detective Lopez's team pieced together the last hours of Lauren's life from phone records, surveillance footage, and witness statements. A pattern emerged: a desperate, frantic flight from a man running from his own demons. Neighbors recalled hearing raised voices late the night before Lauren vanished. Ava remembered her mother's text: "I'm scared, but I'm coming home." But home had become a place of fear, not safety. As the sun set over the desert, the truth was beginning to emerge: Lauren's disappearance was not random. It was a deadly escape attempt, one that ended in tragedy. And somewhere out there, Derek Mitchell was hiding, his secrets buried beneath the endless sands. The air inside the Silver Ridge Police Department was thick with tension as Derek Mitchell was brought in for questioning. His once confident posture was replaced by nervous glances and restless hands. The man who had vanished into the desert was now sitting across from Detective Maria Lopez, the cold, hard truth waiting to be drawn out. "I didn't mean for it to happen," Derek said, voice cracking. "It was self-defense." But the evidence told a different story. Autopsy reports revealed Lauren's injuries were severe and deliberate, bruises consistent with a prolonged struggle, wounds that contradicted Derek's version of events. There was no sign of an accidental fight or an act of desperation. This was calculated violence. Detective Lopez pressed on. "Why did you buy duct tape and a prepaid phone that day?" she asked, voice steady. Derek hesitated, then lowered his gaze. I wanted to disappear. To start over." But the darkness in his eyes betrayed a man haunted by guilt. As the hours passed, Derek's defenses crumbled. He spoke of control, anger, and regret, emotions twisted by years of failed attempts to keep his family together. He revealed a letter he'd written to his daughters, a fractured apology filled with sorrow. "I lost myself, and in doing so, I lost you all. I'm sorry for the pain I caused. I hope one day you can forgive me." Outside the interrogation room, Ava and Sandra waited, their hearts heavy with a mixture of relief and heartbreak. Justice was closing in, but the scars of this tragedy would linger forever. Behind every tragedy lies a story hidden from the world. For Lauren Mitchell, that story was one of quiet suffering and silent battles fought within the walls of her own home. Neighbors spoke of Derek Mitchell as a man once full of charm and warmth. But over time, the man they knew changed, his temper growing volatile, his presence casting a shadow over the family. Friends recalled Lauren's withdrawn smiles, the way she avoided gatherings, and the subtle bruises she tried to hide. Ava's memories painted a different picture. Dad was unpredictable, she said, her voice trembling. One moment, he was loving. The next, angry and cold. Mom tried to protect us, but she was scared. I remember nights when I'd hear shouting, then silence. Sandra described Lauren's attempts to escape the turmoil. She talked about leaving Derek for years, Sandra revealed. She wanted a fresh start, a safe place for her girls. But Derek, he wouldn't let her go easily. Flashbacks brought to life the tension, slammed doors, whispered threats, and the unspoken fear that gripped the family. Lauren's journal entries detailed her desperation, plans to leave, messages of hope mixed with despair. The community's shock deepened. How had this silent war gone unnoticed for so long? Detective Lopez reflected on the layers of pain hidden beneath the surface. A reminder that sometimes, the most dangerous enemies are those closest to home. The courtroom was packed, every seat filled with faces drawn taut by months of grief and unanswered questions. Derek Mitchell stood accused of a crime that had shattered a family and left a community reeling. The evidence was overwhelming, a chilling testament to the dark truth behind Lauren's disappearance. But amidst the heartbreak, there was a flicker of light. The trial of State versus Derek Mitchell captivated the nation. The courtroom was packed daily with press, community members, students who had once known Lauren. Outside, a growing shrine of flowers and candles lined the courthouse steps, a quiet show of support for the family whose grief had become so public. Prosecutor Elaine Carter was unrelenting. She detailed Lauren's final weeks, the threats, the restraining orders, the growing isolation. She presented the journal entries and phone logs, Lauren's bruises documented by doctors, and the haunting 911 call where she had once whispered, "He's here. I think he's watching the house." The evidence was clear, and damning. The hardware store receipt, all meticulously catalogued. But the most devastating testimony came from Ava. She stepped onto the witness stand in a black dress, her voice calm but heavy. "I saw the fear in her eyes," Ava said. "But she still smiled for us every day. She thought she could handle it. She wanted to protect us, but we couldn't protect her." Her words cracked something in the jury. Even the defense attorney, a seasoned public defender, struggled to humanize Derek. He claimed diminished responsibility, that Derek was emotionally unstable, that Lauren's decision to keep him from the girls pushed him over the edge. But no one bought it. Not the jury. Not the town. And certainly not Ava. After 2 weeks of testimony, cross-examinations, and over a dozen witnesses, the jury deliberated for only 4 hours. When the verdict came, the court held its breath. "We, the jury, find the defendant, Derek Allen Mitchell, guilty of murder in the first degree." Maya burst into tears. Ava closed her eyes. Lopez, seated quietly in the gallery, finally let herself exhale. The judge didn't hesitate. Given the nature of the crime, premeditated, violent, and committed in violation of an active protection order, he handed down the maximum sentence. Life in prison without the possibility of parole. No outbursts. No final pleas. Derek Mitchell was led away in silence, never once glancing back. Silver Ridge slowly began to heal, its residents forever changed by a tragedy that revealed the hidden scars of domestic violence. For Ava and Maya, the future was uncertain but brightened by love, remembrance, and the promise that their mother's story would not be forgotten.